We're going to solve radical equations today. So the first thing we want to do for solve radical equations, first thing we need to do with solve radical equations is we need to get the radical by itself. So we want to isolate the radical. So I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. So I've got the square root of 2x minus 1 equals x minus 2. Okay? So I'm going to subtract the term, and I'll get the radical by itself there. Okay. All right. Next, I want to get rid of the radical sign. How do I get rid of a square root? Square both sides, but when I square, I got to square over here too. So I'm going to square that whole quantity. I'll square that whole quantity there. Okay, so I'm going to square that. So 2x minus 1 equals, x minus 2 squared means what? Yeah, x minus 2 times x minus 2. So it's this thing times itself again. So that's not much fun. Yeah, now we could distribute, do FOIL if you were taught that. So we could do x times all that, negative 2 times all that. X times x, x times negative 2, negative 2x, negative 2 times x, then negative 2 times negative 2, 4. And then negative 2x minus 2x would be negative 4x. And I'll pause there for a moment. So this is going to go right here. Right when I write this, I'll pause, I promise. Okay. A lot of work on this problem. And there's a trick on there too. A little stressful. Now, you got to recognize what you have to where the next step. I'm solving an equation, and this is what type of equation? Highest power is 2. Quadratic equation. So I would make it equal 0. Which you could do it other ways too. X squared minus 6x plus 5 equals 0. So I would solve it. I would make it equal 0. I think they're all going to be nice on your homework today. I think they're all going to be factorable. I was having this conversation with somebody last week. How would I solve that? You could do quadratic formula on that, but I think this one's factorable pretty easy. So nice. Okay, I would do this by factoring. Now, your own person, you could do quadratic formula here, but I think they're all nice in this section. And you're going to find two numbers that multiply to 5 and add to negative 6. How do you multiply to a positive and add to a negative? Negative, negative. Negative times a negative is a positive. Negative plus a negative is a negative. So what multiplies to 5 and adds to negative 6? Negative 5 and negative 1. So now that's not the answer. We're going to have to solve that. Okay. Now I'm going to set each of these equal to 0. 0 product property. So add 5, x equals 5. Add 1, x equals 1. Now, I'm going to stop there. Now, here's the problem on this in solving radicals. This is where, if you're already in a cranky mood, it's going to make you even more cranky. Okay? You're probably going to have, one of these is probably not going to work. Spoiler alert, one of these is not going to work. Okay? One of these is what we're going to be called an extraneous solution. Okay? You will have one like this in your test. So just one like this in your test. But you're going to plug it in. Let's plug in 5 first. So I'm going to plug it in, and I'm going to see what works. But just spoiler alert, one of these is not going to work. Or I think this one does. 5 does work. So this one works. But I don't think that one's going to work. So like I could draw an arrow there. Whoever's trying to follow along here. So 2 times 1 minus 1's 1. 1 plus 2. Is that, you see how that I got 3 here. 3 equals 1. That's not true, so that one gets thrown out. So whenever you write your answer on your Math Excel, you're just going to put one answer. You're just going to put 5. That's an extraneous solution. We're not keeping that one.